You don't need a perfect start to become a powerful leader. Just the courage to grow, serve, and show up when it matters most. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Leaders Realm podcast, where we cut through the noise and get real about what it takes to grow, lead, and live life with purpose. I'm your host, Tony Camerata. Today's episode, it's one of those rare conversations, one that grabs you by the collar and reminds you what true leadership looks like. And I'm not talking about from the boardroom, but from the heart. I'm sitting down with Bill Pienias. He's the CEO of FinFit Life. He's a guy whose story stretches from the gritty streets of Chicago to the executive suite and every single tough, teachable moment in between. Bill opens up about the pivotal lessons that shaped him from a blue-collar upbringing to a college injury that nearly derailed him, all the way to a single teacher's words that changed the way he viewed life. But more than just the hardships, this conversation is about those experiences that refined him into a servant leader. A concept that changed the way he leads, builds teams, and impacts lives. We're not just talking about leadership theory here. Bill gets into the real stuff: financial fitness, physical health, mentorship, mindset, daily discipline, and why protecting people, whether they live too long or die too soon, isn't just business, it's personal. If you're somebody who's looking to level up in life, in leadership, or just needs a reminder, one that reminds you that your story still has chapters yet to be written, you're going to want to lean all the way in on this one. So grab that coffee, sit back, and let's get going. Hey, good morning, Bill. How you doing today?
Tony, I'm doing great. How are you, my friend?
Awesome, man. Awesome. Listen, I got to tell you, I'm really excited about our conversation today. You and I have spoken offline a handful of times and had a pleasure breaking bread with you and meeting and just having a good, authentic, true conversation. And man, I'm looking forward to you sharing your story with my listeners and just empowering a few people to get unstuck and make some things happen with their lives. So
it goes both ways, Tony. I tell you, I've really enjoyed it. And I have found that usually good people, birds of a feather flock together. And we have a mutual friend who's cut from the same cloth. And it's always good when you meet people and you're like, this is a brother from another mother. So
yeah,
I appreciate that, Tony.
Absolutely, man. I feel the same. So listen, to get started, just, share a little bit about your journey, man. Like, where did you grow up? Were there some values that stick out in your mind? A lot of times when we get older, right, we look back on our lives and like, man, that was a pivotal point in my life. That really shaped me, whether it was something a coach said or a teacher or a mentor, an uncle, a father, a mother. I know you've got a couple of those stories. I'd love for you to share some of those. So tell us, where you're from and where you grew up and a little bit about that and some of the things that shaped you.
Yeah, well, it's an important question you just asked, because if you think about Bill Pienias, the first thing that always comes out of my mouth is I'm a South Side of Chicago guy. And South Side of Chicago was it was a blue-collar, hardworking group of people. My mom and dad were no exception. My dad was a plumber. My mom was a clerical worker. And I learned early on what an honest day's pay for an honest day's work was. And we had chores and things of that sort. And it's really interesting is I think back even from when I was a small kid, both my parents worked. So when we would go to school on our own, we'd come home on our own. We had chores we needed to do at the house. We were active for sports, so we were responsible for getting to our team practices by ourselves. And that was a level of personal responsibility that I learned early on. And ironically, when you think about some of the things that shaped you, first off, the neighborhood people, these neighborhood kids, friends of mine, are still friends of mine. And I went back to a 40-year class reunion, and we had over 45 people from that class there. It was great. And just, there's such commonality of where you came from. And ironically, many of them still live in the South Side of Chicago. I do not. I live in Tampa, Florida. And when I graduated college, I went coaching football, and sports had played such a big part of my life. There was a couple things that stood out from that. One is you can't quit. Once you start something, you got to finish it. And so no matter what you wanted to do during the season, if you're having a tough time and you got to go through it, you got to stick through it. That's always stayed with me. It also then led into my professional career. As coaching football, I always believed that working together as a team and camaraderie and things of that sort mattered. And I wanted to do something that used my mind and I'll call it my natural gifts of being a leader. I wanted to be a leader. And because I realized on a sporting team, didn't matter where you were, you wanted to be the person that was the guy that hit the home run or was the pitcher that was controlling the game, or you wanted to be the quarterback that could control the game and actually, be the person that makes a difference to winning. And I was a quarterback in football. Those principles, those leadership responsibilities and wanting to be responsible for that have lasted me a long time. And one last thing I'll mention about my background that has shaped me is there were two real pivotal points, and I really hadn't shared this much in my life. Was there a guy, teacher, his name was Mr. Wiseman. And matter of fact, he was at our 40th reunion.
How about that?
He was the only teacher that was there.
Wow.
And he made a statement that said, we had exactly 101 people in our class, our eighth grade graduation class. And he said, do you understand that by the time you turn 15, he gave the statistics, how many people were going to be dead, how many people were going to be unemployed, how many people were going to be financially independent, and how many people were going to be dead broke. And I remember thinking, wait a second, he said that there's going to be at least 4 people dead. Who would it be? And his comment was, you better live life to the fullest and take advantage of everything that's going on in your life. That stuck with me for years. As a matter of fact, we mentioned it in the reunion. And the second thing that made a difference in my life was that I got a chance to live overseas. And I coached football with the Madrid Osos, and I had some brief stints with the World Football League there. And what was interesting, I realized people are people. It didn't matter what language they spoke. They all had the same desires. They wanted to have a good family. They wanted to retire. They wanted to be financially independent. They wanted to have their kids educated. And I realized, that's the same as was in the south side of Chicago. So anyone that says, hey, well, you don't understand where I came from, there might be cultural differences, but there are principles and desires that every human being has. And that made me feel more of an earthling, a human being, rather than just a south side of Chicago guy. And that has shaped my life to be a person of wanting to be a servant leader. And it's been in existence in most of my career. And I've been married now there'll be 30 years in November. I have 3 kids. I have a 27-year-old boy. Yeah, it's been 30 years. You go through lots of ups and downs and things of that sort. And I have like I said, a 27-year-old son, a 25-year-old daughter, and a 23-year-old son. And I will say this about the importance of having the right partner is critical. And I have been very blessed. My wife, Mary Ann, if you think I'm tough, she's 10 times tougher. And if you think that I'm organized, she's 10 times more organized. She has got it together. She has been the logistics officer and the peacekeeper of our family more than I can tell you. And one of the things that made a difference to me is knowing and watching my parents go through hard times, and watching her parents, as that know that we've been married 30 years, watching her parents go through hard times. The importance of what being married is, and having a life partner that you're going to do life together. So that's a little bit about me and my background.
Yeah. So, that's some great stuff, man. There's some great nuggets in there for sure. But one question I like to ask people is this: what challenges that you've come across through life? I mean, we've all got challenges, obviously, right? But what were the ones that, or maybe one that sticks out the most, that taught you the most about perseverance and leadership?
It would have to be when I was in college. Okay. It was the real first test that I had in my life. Most people, they rest on what their strength is, and whether it's intellectual, physical, it might be you rest on a negotiation skill. And for me, being an athlete was my physicality. I was a good athlete. I could throw a football. I could run fast. I was pretty strong. And when I was in college, we were going into spring training, and I'd just been named as I was going to be 1 and 2. There was the two quarterbacks that were going to be going for the starting position as a sophomore, my freshman year going into my sophomore year, it was me and this other gentleman. And I blew out my shoulder literally one day before the spring game.
Wow.
And totally shredded it. So I needed to have surgery. And coming back from that was earth shaking because the thing that I could rest on the most, which was my physicality, I didn't have it. I no longer had the strongest arm. I no longer was as strong, or at least felt as strong in my life. So I had to go back to my preparation, and I had to be over prepared, and I had to be over cognizant. And which really shaped my life is to know the most uncertain and most fearful I was in my life was that moment, not knowing if I was ever going to play the game I loved, which I had visions of grandeur of being a professional athlete, knowing that I was not very smart, but now I was in an Ivy League institution, and that was not my strength. I had to work really hard. And all of a sudden now the only thing I had for me is that I had to now study, and I had to make the grades, or they were going to kick me out, so to speak. And the last thing I'd mention that is that the people that had recruited me, the people that trusted me and I trusted the most, they were gone because that whole staff got fired and they replaced it with a new staff.
Oh, wow.
So I had to start from the bottom. And what it gave me was a level of everybody has boundaries. And the question is, how fast can you get to the boundaries and expand them? And so I had to learn where my boundaries were in my shoulder and how I could work out and push that boundary. I had to learn the boundaries of reading defenses and working out and things of that sort. That gave me one thing. It gave me confidence that I could face any trial in my life and overcome. And I ultimately became the starting quarterback for Brown University. And it, that level of success, after it took 3 years to get there. I didn't do it until my senior year, and it was actually my fifth year. That made a difference, marked a difference in my life.
So it gave. Obviously, you learn resilience through that, discipline. What it tastes like to actually persevere and overcome those challenges, right? And the sad thing for me is, I look at a lot of people and listen to a lot of people's stories, and you get to that point sometimes where you push and you push and you push, and then something happens, and it's a major drawback in our lives, and you didn't realize before you walked away from it that you were right there had you just pushed a little harder. And I think such a small percentage of us get to that point in life where we want it so bad that we never get to taste that victory because we stop short and we shortchange ourselves.
Without a doubt.
So that's a great story, man. It's a great comeback story there. So, Bill, to let my listeners know a little bit more about your background, you're currently the CEO of FinFit Life. And a little bit later on, we'll get into, I'd like for you to get into a little bit more about what FinFit Life does and what it is. But what I'd like for you to do is just kind of walk us through your professional path and the things that led to you becoming the CEO of FinFit Life. Because you've shared some of the stories with me, and I think it'd be beneficial to share with everyone else.
Yeah. Sure. I'll give you a kind of a 50,000 foot view of it. It translated into having responsibilities as a football coach, that if you're responsible for part of the team, whether it be a quarterback or quarterback coach, offensive line coach, offensive coordinator, you have a level of responsibility that you have to deliver. And I've always felt that responsibility. I got very lucky. Never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur, and got into financial services by accident. I was getting married, and I didn't know anything about money. And my dad said, if I don't start saving money, I'll be broke just like him. And he said, good luck. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? And that started a process of me investigating financial services and investments and things of that sort. And a very, very good friend of mine that I had grown up with happened to be in the insurance and investment business. And when he came on over and shared with me the principles and fundamentals of finance, and then some of the products and services that were available, he told me literally, if I could save $500 a month into a retirement vehicle, I would have an opportunity to be a millionaire when I retire. And millionaire and my name were never in the same sentence ever, especially with some reality to it. And when I saw that, I said, man, God, this is a big deal. And everybody that I know needs to know about it. So I became kind of like an evangelist of showing people that they didn't have to be broke their whole life. And lo and behold, he says, hey, listen, you get licensed and there's a licensing requirement. I think you could make a living on this. And so I got into the financial services business by accident. I got licensed and started showing some people that. In the process of that, I realized that building a business was important because I noticed all the people that were making any real money were building agencies. And so I started to build an agency, and I started building a team of people. And that team of people became a very good agency and made me several hundreds of thousands of dollars. And what turned me into the person I am today was was fortunate. A company called Aegon bought my little agency, and they brought me into the corporate side. And I learned what it was to be an entrepreneur by building my agency. But then also I learned what it meant to have corporate disciplines and what it meant to be in a big corporation. And I went from being a marketing guy to the chief marketing officer, then ultimately became the president and CEO of their largest broker dealer, their investment company. And we had some tremendous success. It took a lot of hard work. I was on the road for 3 years, and I realized what it meant to be all in and what it also meant to be in terms of the corporate games that are played. But what it also did is it gave me a bird's eye view of what it takes to really build a company and what it means to really build a culture. And speaking from this side of my career, there are certain things that I would obviously do differently. When I left Aegon, I went back into being an entrepreneur, and I own weight loss clinics, franchises. I own a brewery. I also have been active with other companies and businesses. But with my practice, my profession took me to Central Eastern Europe, and there was a company called the Salve Group, and became the CEO there. And that was an unbelievable experience because we were in 5 different countries, and we were expanding really rapidly with the understanding we were going to be able to do the health reform and pension reforms. Well, when governments get involved, and they basically stripped away any ability for you to make any money, and they prolonged the process. It ultimately went away. And so the people that should have been benefited from it, from the populations of those countries, they didn't. And we weren't able to make any money, but we put a lot of money into the infrastructure. So ultimately, that business is still there. They're thriving in a number of different ways. But then I came back in the United States and then built some other companies. I got into FinFit Life because the last company, there was 2 companies that had been sold, and this was now the 3rd that I had been partnered with, and the owners of the company had sold it. And Forrester's Financial was the company I was with, and it was sold. And it was in 2019, and I'm thinking, okay, now what's my next chapter? I did not want to be back in the financial services, corporate America. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I got partnered up with a guy named Howard Scharfman and John Irvin, my 2 partners. And they had a great idea about working through the intersection of financial fitness, which is getting your money working for you in those financial products, and physical fitness of how do you incentivize people in healthy living. And ultimately, that's how we started FinFit Life. There's one important part, though, of this piece is that when you become the CEO of a company, the thing that I learned of this, or responsible for a business unit, there's different levels of entrepreneurship. You could be a solopreneur where you run your own business or you own your own job. You could be an entrepreneur where you are literally starting a company and you have infrastructure and you run a system and things of that sort. Or you could be a corporatepreneur, which means you are really responsible for a business unit, and you act and function like a business owner, but it's with the overlay of the finances and the corporate structure behind you. And I had a great opportunity to do that for a number of years with a number of companies. What I find interesting, though, is when you work in a business and you become a CEO, there's 2 real issues that I see people face. And the first one is pride. And it's the ego of, hey, I got to have the power. I need to demonstrate the power. I could change people. And then the second part is the execution. And what you realize is that with power comes a great responsibility. But as you know, from a spiritual perspective, it says, pride always comes before the fall. I have never not seen that be true. never. Prideful people, and people that always are exhibiting power over people, withholding some people back, causes issues. It just does in leadership. But the second part is execution. I realized that, there's a saying that says none of us is as strong as all of us. And in order for you to do anything in life, you have to have a team, and they have to be part of the team. And if they're not part of the team, you sure as heck aren't going to do a lot of things, at least not a lot of great things.
So you're bringing up a really good point and a question that I want to ask you, because I know you've shared some stuff with me personally in our conversations. And I know that, anybody who achieves the level of success that you've achieved as a CEO, corporatepreneur, as you put it, what was the point? What sparked your transformation from being that CEO seeking power, validation, to the servant leader that you've become today?
Yeah, thank you for that question, because that's an important question that you have to ask yourself. Is what's changed and what's not working and what's working. And the one thing I can say is that I always seem to have been going forward, but the wake of destruction was pretty high. I was almost like a bull in a china shop, and I realized there was a lot of damage to relationships and things of that sort. And from a professional standpoint, there was two things that changed. One, a very good mentor of mine made a comment to me, and I do believe that everybody has to have some mentorship. Actually, let me start over for a second. How I got into being mentored was that I had a good friend, father, say, "You seem to be lost and you need to have some mentorship." And I was like, "Yeah, every person I'm looking to talk to, is my enemy or my competition." And he said, "Why don't you start talking to people that are retiring from that position, and they actually want to give back, but they're no longer in that seat of power, position, or prestige, and they would love to pour their lives into people that are like you." And that was a big benefit for me. I started looking for people that were retiring, that had knowledge of what I was looking to become, and that started this mentoring piece from that. And then what it did, it validated the importance of relationships. And then a mentor of mine was named Mike Brooks, and he was the one that said to me, "Bill, there's something inside you that always has to validate recognition. Like, you have to be recognized for things." And that changed me, because I was thinking, "No, what are you talking about? Give me an example. I don't think that's true." And he said, when it comes up, I'll let you know." And I've shared the story with you before. It was interesting because in that conversation, it came up. And he said, "See, Bill, right there, you're trying to be validated by like you want me to recognize that you did something good. And why?" And I said, "I don't know. It's just I was always taught that I needed to be recognized for what I did, because I need my presence to be there." And he said, "Let me give you a scenario. If you walked into a party and nobody knew who you were, and you did what Bill Pienias does, you meet and greet people and you build relationships, and you add value and you do Bill Pienias. And then when you leave, they say about you, who is that person? Would you be okay with that?" And Tony, I got to tell you, I had to be honest and say, no, I needed them to recognize it was me. And he said, "There's the problem, because now that is why you're doing things for the recognition, not for the purpose and intention of doing something of value." And that changed me. The second thing that changed me was in 2019, going through the transition of selling the business with Foresters Financial and turning the chapter. From a spiritual perspective, I had God come right in front of me and say, "Hey, listen, here's your sins, here's your life, and you got to confront this. And you have a choice. Are you going to live your way, or are you going to live my way?" And I can tell you, now 6 years into this, his ways are better than my ways. Amen. And I've realized that being a servant leadership is about serving others, not saying you're a servant leader and having other people serve you. And unfortunately, many people in power, they got it mixed up.
Yeah,
they think that they're at the top versus they're really the foundation that are supposed to build from that service, not the other way around.
So you're hitting on a great point. It's something I've tried to cover in a past episode on servant leadership. And I just like to hear it from someone who's actually living it. So if you had to personally define servant leadership, what would that be?
I would say this is purpose over self.
Okay.
Second is team is more important than me. And what I mean by that is if you're going to go into battle, and every day in business and every day in life is some form of battle, you're going to fight, you're going to face a trial, tribulation, an issue. If you try to face it alone, you are going to have a really hard battle, because most of the time the world doesn't fight fair one-on-one. It's usually 2, 3, 4-on-1. So servant leadership is about understanding that team is more important than me. And, I remember the hockey 1980 movie about the 1980 hockey team. It said the name on the front of the jersey is way more important than the name on the back of the jersey. That's part of servant leadership, understanding that the team is important. And then the last thing I'll say about servant leadership, which I think is one of the most important parts, is that when you love people and you love the mission, it's exhibited in everything that you say. It's exhibited in your words. It's exhibited in your actions. It's exhibited in your focus. And servant leadership does come down to a form of loving others as yourself.
Amen. Amen. And how, so, looking at your positions in the past and the successes that you've had, the failures that you've had in the past, how do you feel that this style, servant leadership, because some people will call it a style, right? I mean, to me, it's a reality. It's the only way to lead. How has it impacted the way you lead at FinFit Life? And so it's kind of two-part, right? So how has it impacted it? And then also, what resistance did you face trying to adopt it? Because obviously, when you're at the realm, the helm of the ship with all of these passengers, your team, you've got a mix of people and a mix of ideologies and all of that. So, how has it impacted? And then what type of resistance did you face trying to adopt the mindset?
Great. The resist part is interesting. So let me start with what the practices of servant leadership is. Servant leadership is not about changing people. It's about walking life together. And what does that mean? It means this, is that when sometimes people give you a problem or an issue, your job sometimes isn't to solve it. Your job is to listen. And then the second is then to encourage change. That's part of that. So many people say that, you have hurts, habits, and hangups. Well, my job's not to change you. That's you could say from a spiritual standpoint, that's God's job. I'm not here to change you. But what I am here to do is to be an example of what it means to be compassionate and understanding and walking through life. They say you don't know what a person's like until their life is like until you've walked a mile in their shoes. That's really servant leadership. That's the action of servant leadership. And the second part of servant leadership in the actions are that you take as much responsibility over your own work as you do anything else, which means you're a do-it-first leader. You're not going to ask somebody to do something that you're not willing to do or haven't done. And I have noticed that when everything is said and done, unfortunately, there's more said than done. And a servant leadership is about actions of doing. So that's the actions of it. What's the resistance of it? The resistance of servant leadership is, I've already done it. Why do I have to do it again? I happen to be in a moment in time in my business right now where I have to go back to the very basics of what they call blocking and tackling of our business. And that's in the recruiting and training. That's in the sales, in individual sales and sales practices and the sales process. I have to do it myself. I'm going through that same thing and I'm going, wait a second, I've been doing this for 30 years. Why do I have to do it again? Because that's what success demands. It demands that you do what's required to be successful and to be an example of success. Every business is a monkey see, monkey do business. So if you are monkeying around, guess what? You're going to have a lot of people monkeying around. But if you're going to get down to business and you're going to do the work required, you will find that more people are willing to do it if they see that you're willing to do it and are doing it. And the resistance is that mindset. Man, I've done this already. I don't need to do it again. Well, I hate to say this. If you win and you want to win again, and I'll end that resistance piece with this example. We had a great year in 2024, and we were focused on having a great year in 2025. And if you were to say that year was a success, in order for you to be more successful the next year, or if you're in a sports team and you won a championship, it is more difficult to win it the next year because you have higher competition. You have more people gunning for you. And more importantly, you have a habit. As you can see, I'm getting a little passionate and fired up about it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The habit of, listen, man, I've already done this. I don't need to do it again. And that is so wrong that it is absolutely necessary for you to up the ante, for you to become a little bit more disciplined, for you to be a little bit more focused, and for you to be more focused on how you show up to the game every day, in the game of life. It could be the game with your spouse and your kids. It could be the game of your business. It could be the game of you in terms of what I call a self-order. Whatever game you want to play, you got to play it at the next level, especially if you want to be a champion. And, like I said, it gets me fired up because many people, as you said before, are so close to success, but they let that little piece of either doubt or overconfidence, or I've already done this entitlement. I've already done it. I don't have to do it again.
How about this? Let me just throw one more in there. How about this? They get to a point where they just get so comfortable that complacency sets in, right? And my definition of complacency is the first step in moving backwards.
So let me tell you something. I'm getting very excited about this because this was one conversation that changed my life. I got a chance to have dinner with John Maxwell. And we were talking to John about a number of things. And I asked that same question. I said, John, why do people get to a certain level and they just cool off? They just stop. And he turned to me and with the most intense look. And John's a very loving. If you know John Maxwell, he's a very loving, gentle man. And he said, Bill, I'm in my 70s, going on my 80s. And people say, why don't you retire? And he said, I can't afford to retire. And I'm like, we talk about it. You only think about money. And he said, Bill, do you understand that God has put so much on my plate? And I have worked my whole life to develop these skills and these attitudes and abilities to influence people that when I go to work, I get 10 times the amount of value I did when I was in my 30s. So I cannot afford not to plant seeds into the future for people to grow. And I said, goodness sakes, that's so true.
Yeah, and he said something. So we talked about this briefly in our lunch meeting. I'm actually a certified John Maxwell team member and speaker and coach. Awesome. And I had the opportunity to have lunch with him, and we had a similar conversation. So, yeah, I get it. I mean, and the passion that comes out of that man is just incredible. Amazing. But the fine line there is, if you listen to John tell it and I'm hearing you say it, it's about pouring into others, right? And adding value to others, helping them realize their value and teaching them to add value to others. And if we continue to do that, man, the amount of the leadership that we could have is incredible. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to read one of his latest books was High Road Leadership. And boy, I tell you, there are some points in that book that just make you say, wow.
I will have to get that.
I've got this all wrong. Yeah, it's an amazing book. So having said all of this stuff and bringing the servant leadership model of FinFit Life, and you having to do the work and having to reset and chase it again, do the work all over again, even though you've already done it. So I'm assuming, based on what you're saying, that this is the culture that you're trying to breed and build within the leadership of FinFit Life internally. Right. So having said that, the actual products, when you start talking about what FinFit Life stands for, the health, wealth, and lifestyle, right? Why do they matter so much to the mission itself?
Yeah, it's a very important question to ask because most people don't know what money's supposed to do. They think it's just supposed to buy things, but they are the seeds of the future. It's really important for you to be prudent with your money, and money has certain functions. So our company was built on this. How do we teach people and how the products and services we have to get your money working for you? And we focus on two things: protecting people if you live too long or die too soon. And the second is to make sure that you have proper retirement income planning, because people don't retire on assets, they retire on income. You live on money and income. And so we wanted to make sure that we built a company that was focused on those things of teaching people how to get their money working for them and to protect them in good times and in bad times. The second part of that is becoming more physically fit. And we knew that many people aren't physically. The reason why I actually own weight loss clinics is I saw that there was this massive obesity issue, and that quickly followed by a pandemic of diabetes. And most of it was around habits that were preventable around eating and exercising. And so that's why I went into that business. I realized it's really important. Well, FinFit Life is built on that through a partnership with John Hancock and a company called Vitality. And Vitality is like a frequent flyer mile system that incentivizes people's activities by eating the right foods, getting great proper medical care and physical activity, all used through wearables, and everybody has an iPhone or as a smartphone with them. So it automatically logs this. And it's funny, many people, they get weirded out. Hey, I don't want you tracking me. I hate to say this, they're tracking you already. I mean, So get over it. They already did it, and it's already done. So unless you're living in the forest and you have no electronics around you at all, I hate to say that they're tracking you. So get over that. The reality of your physical fitness.
People will come up with anything to make an excuse as to why they're not fit, right?
It's so true. It's so true. And we built a company around that to make sure that we incentivize it. And we've done a great job. So we have several thousands of clients that are actively engaged in getting more healthy. And at the same time, it puts money into their insurance and investment products with our organization.
Interesting.
And so we have a slogan that says financial fitness, physical fitness, and the lifestyle to enjoy it. And what that encompasses is that if you can have all the money in the world and no health, you have nothing. And you can have all the health in the world and no money, you really have no fun. So we know that the importance is having both. And part of that is peace of mind, the energy from your physicality of being able to do the things you want to do when you want to do it, and have the money to do the things that you'd like to do when you want to do them as well. And so we believe that your fitness and finance go together, and that's what FinFit Life is built on.
So, Bill, when I've noticed there's been some highs and some neutrals during our conversation, right? There's some things that spike your passion meter just starts going up, and I love that. So this question is going to be really important to that. There's something about this mission that you're on. What makes this mission of health and fitness and finances, what makes it so personal for you?
Thank you for that question. That's a big that's a big question. I'll sum it up as quickly as I can. One, I'm a product of the product, meaning I've been in financial services and my life has drastically changed. I'm financially independent. I've been able to travel the world. I've been able to share things with experiences with my family that I would have only dreamed of. And it was all because of the industry of understanding and teaching people about finance. The second thing that gets me fired up about what we do and what I do is that I'm in a team building business. We build teams. We teach people how to make money and be entrepreneurs using financial services as the bedrock to do that. And the third is that when I say product of the product, I've been a client of FinFit Life since 2020. I have lost over 25 pounds. We did an internal test where they can tell you based on your health and your markers what your internal age is. And at the time I was 51, and guess what? My markers were over 51. Well, now 4 years later, I just did that test as I was telling you, last month. My internal age was 38, and all of my markers were at least in what they call the normal or above normal range. And that is a pure testament to the ability to give what's called gamifying your physical activity and your health. And why I'm so passionate about it is that I have seen people that have worked their whole life on money and they gave up their health and they died early. And I've seen people that haven't paid attention to their money, and then they get to 55 or 60 and they're like, oh goodness, I can't retire. And all of a sudden now their life is almost in shambles. And I couldn't imagine hell on earth, what hell on earth would be like is being a little older where you're in bad health and you have no money. I couldn't imagine a worse situation. And so my passion is that people can live life to the fullest and absolutely be able to live the life that they always dreamed about, because they can be the creator of it. And our company is passionate about teaching that. And if I could think about this, if I can get the money right, I can get the heart right. And when I get the heart right, I always get the money right. If my body is the vehicle in which I operate my life in, if I can get that vehicle to be as clean and as crisp and as powerful as possible, boy, I can operate in life a heck of a lot better. And if I have a lifestyle of serving other people, people's purpose, people's passions, and the most happy people in the world, if it's around helping and serving other people, they not only live longer, but they have the most joy in their life. And so we've combined those three as our mission. And I hope that I can say that other people would look at me and say, Bill Pienias lives that mission daily.
Awesome. So, I mean, this is a question that a lot of people struggle with when they're asked. And I don't know if it's just when people think about it, they just get to a point where it brings up some resentment in themselves or some fears. But what do you wish that you knew earlier in your career or earlier in your leadership journey that you've learned recently or over the past 5 years even?
Yeah. So you had asked me this question a little earlier in a different way. You said, what happens when people get stuck?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I wish I would have known this and I would have lived this statement. The lies I believe hold me in bondage. And as I'm saying it, all of these things that I believed that were lies, boy, I wasted so much time and so much energy, and I provided so much pain and suffering to myself and others.
I'm with you.
That's the first one. Is I wish I would have learned that, and I wish I would have tested what I really believed based on something that was true. And I now do that from a biblical standpoint. But there are plenty of things that you can see that are truths. And John Maxwell has the leadership truths, the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. When you go back and you test your leadership skills on those 21 laws, that's a truth teller on whether your leadership skills are true or not. Self-serving versus servant leading. That's the first one. And the second, I wish someone would have told me and demonstrated I don't have as much time as I think, because I was a little too casual on things that were really important. I was a little too, hey, I'll get to it later, of doing the really important things. And then the last thing I'll say is, especially when you're married and have a family, that goes back to you don't have as much time as you think. Mm-hmm. My kids, it's emotional. I look at the pictures of my kids, and I wasn't there. I mean, there was all the pictures that were there. Maybe I was in a few. There were a lot of times that I don't remember. And I wish somebody would have told me how important those things were.
Thank you for sharing that, man. It's like I said, man, it's a tough question for all of us.
Yeah.
For all of us, because you look back and think, man, if I just would have stepped left instead of stepping right, would things be different, or how would things be different? And so it's a tough one, and I appreciate you sharing that. So, Bill, what it's I felt that emotion right there with you, there with you.
I didn't realize.
How do you? And this is tough for all of us, right? I mean, because we're constantly running, and there's so much going on in our lives. So many societal pressures and things that are going on with in the news and the world, and then here you are, you find yourself leading at such a high level, right? You're leading this team, and you're dealing with the, shielding the team from the negative things that are happening within the company and trying to fix those. And like you said yourself, having to go back to the basics and start over. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. What would you say is the best thing that you practice that keeps you grounded? How do you stay grounded with all of this that's going on?
Yeah, that's a really important question based on someone's self-order. And I would tell you what keeps me grounded is what I call self-order. I have certain routines that I do that it refreshes my soul and it keeps me healthy. I have an executive coach. I believe everybody should be, if you want to play at the highest level, you should have a coach. And I know that you coach, and I think it's really important that people understand that, Tony, what you do is extremely valuable, especially for people that want to play at that highest level. And then my executive coach asked me, he said, what are you doing? He knows that I'm going to go through this period of time. They say everybody has to walk through the valley of death, and behold, you walk through the valley of death. I fear no evil. Well, what the heck does that mean? It means everybody's got to walk through the valley. It's going to be sometime. I'm going to be walking through a very difficult valley of hard work and focus and intentionality, and where it's critical to make sure that I'm stepping in the right places to get through this. But it's going to suck. It's going to be painful. It's going to, the Navy SEALs say, embrace the suck. It's just, It's going to happen. I would tell you the part of that is that self-order is critical. And what refreshes my soul is I get up early in the morning, I go work out. Been lucky that I've been able to work out with my son on a regular basis, but I go get physically fit. I do that. I'm up at 5 in the gym by 5:30. And then more importantly is that when I come home, I actually do some quiet time for my soul with reading the Bible. I've read the Bible now daily for the last 6 years. And then after that, then I watch Good Morning America, because I want to find out for the first 30 minutes what the heck is going on in the world.
Right.
And what's also interesting, I don't listen to the opinions. I just want to see the topics that they're mentioning, so that if there's certain things that I need to pay attention to in the world, I can. But then I get after it. Those things, the one thing that keeps me grounded is I realize that the president isn't going to change my life. The newscasters are not going to change my life. I'm going to change my life. And it's the things in which I do and the things that are important to me that I get done will do it. And what keeps me grounded is to know that I have a simple process of win the day. Every day I have 3 of the most important things I want to get done. And at the end of the day, I'll ask myself, did I do them? And it's a yes or no answer. It's not it's a, did you get them done or not? It's a yes or no. And then the other is the perfect week. At the end of the week, did you have more win the days than less win the days? And if you put those together week after week, day after day, you're gonna be successful. But the most important part is you got to know why you're doing it and what you're doing, and that's what win the day is. What's the most important part of that day? And if you're doing things that aren't getting you to the most important part, that's what's kept me grounded from self-order, then that means I am either people-pleasing or, more importantly, I'm undisciplined. And those things are never a combination for success.
That's awesome. Well, this has been it's been some great stuff, man. Great stuff. If you're well, let's have a little fun now. So if your leadership had a tagline, what would it be? Here's the tagline for Bill Pienias. Just throw it out there.
The tagline would be the CEO of your life.
Be the CEO of your life. Be the CEO of your life. Think about that, guys. I mean, just take that in for a second. We've been sitting here for 45 minutes so far, and listening to Bill's story and share his insights and his leadership style, some of the things that he's gone through. Be the CEO of your life. Be the CEO of your life. So, Bill, real quick, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book, the Bible, without a doubt.
Amen. Amen. That's awesome. How about favorite habit?
My favorite what?
Habit.
I love having a nice bottle of wine with my wife.
Okay. Outstanding. How about, favorite quote?
When I change, everything around me changes. When I get better, everything around me gets better.
Wow.
It's my favorite quote.
And how about principle?
My favorite, I'll call it the promise, is that knock and the door will be open. Seek, and you will find. And that's
Amen.
true. I found it in every area of my life.
I call that picking up rocks. If you're not out there picking up rocks, you're never going to find what was it, either Timon or Pumbaa, I don't know, in The Lion King. I remember that when my son was a kid watching that movie over and over and over again. They were picking up rocks and opening up, pieces, little pieces of wood, picking them up. And they were looking for the crunchy cream filled kind, right?
Yep.
You'll never find the crunchy cream filled kind unless you're picking up rocks.
That's exactly right.
So seek and you will find. Seek and you will find. I want to spend a couple of minutes, Bill. I think your mission, I think FinFit Life, the concept of blending physical fitness, which I'm huge on. I've shared some of my story with you and how I've lost almost 100 pounds over the past 3.5 years and gotten my health in order, more active now and physically fit than I've been in a ton of years.
You look awesome, brother.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
You look awesome.
I appreciate it. But, more importantly than that is I feel awesome.
Mm-hmm.
For the first time in a long time in my life, I truly feel like I'm hitting on all 8 cylinders. There was a time in my life here recently where it was a dark, dark, dark period of my life. And I remember as I was coming out of the darkness, as God's leading me through and showing me who I truly am. I remember asking God one day in my quiet time, I was like, no matter how many successes I have throughout the day, no matter how hard I work throughout the day, at the end of the day, you talk about win the day, right? I won the day from a worldly standpoint, but yet there was always that feeling of emptiness. And I truly started focusing in on, just looking for my calling.
Mm-hmm.
And really, my calling is the fulfillment that I get in just sharing stories with guys like you and sharing with the listeners on the podcast. I never imagined I'd be doing a podcast a few years back.
Yeah.
And the outpouring, the support has just been tremendous. And the feeling of fulfillment, and as I always share this with everyone that I speak with, when they ask me, what's the goal of your podcast? The goal of my podcast is to share stories, ideas, speak with people like yourself. I'm going to start doing more and more interviews here in the future. And the entire goal, Bill, is to touch the life of one person with each episode. If I can just touch the life of one person, make that small change, then maybe they'll go out and make that change themselves. And when you start looking at the multiplication factor, the impact that we can have in the world is tremendous. And that in itself, see, that's my legacy. I don't want to be, I have a grandson now and I've got another one on the way and it's incredible blessing. But, you think about things a little bit differently. And, you hear the stories of the grandparents, the inheritances and the cars and the boats and the real estate and all that. Yeah, that's all great. But I want my grandson to remember his grandfather. And that is where I get emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Because he made a change. So, anyway,
that's great stuff there, Tony.
Yeah, man. And
I want to take a moment and recognize that because what you just said is that everybody, and that's part of being the CEO of your life. When you take responsibility, everybody has the ability to change, and that's why that's my favorite quote: is when you change, everything around you changes. But it starts with you. There was another quote. My other favorite quote is, "History is written, not read." Many people think that history in the books and hey, listen, you're the author of your life. Write the chapter you want to write.
Amen.
And when you're doing that, my friend, you give people hope that they can be true for them. I'm proud of you. I appreciate you too.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Now, I definitely appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time today. I know you've got a tight schedule and a busy schedule. But real quick, I want you to share with the listeners, because this is so important, man. I mean, how can people connect with you or with FinFit Life?
They could connect with me at William. My last name, it's Pienias, P-I-E-N as in Nancy, I-A-S, at finfitlife.com. Or they can go to finfitlife.com, finfitlife.com. And just say, hey, I'd like to talk to Bill Pienias. I would love to have a chat. that's probably the easiest way to get connected with me. And I would say this, my passion is very similar to the way you articulated yours. If you can make a difference to help someone change their life, the ripple effect of that change usually is not just them, it's everybody that's around them. And that is a very, very powerful concept and truth. And that's a powerful thing.
That's awesome. So, Bill, if you could just sum it all up in just a short phrase as we wrap it up today. If there's the one thing that you can share with someone that's listening that is feeling stuck, feeling fearful, feeling like, man, I'm just not good enough to get there, what would you share with that person?
I would say this is you're never alone. There are people praying for you and thinking about you that you probably don't know. And I would tell you that the first thing is most people don't ever ask for help because they think that they're all alone. There is more people that are willing to help than you have any concept of. And that'd be the first thing. The second thing I would tell them is that you don't have to do it alone. And the life is not meant to be built on individualism and all by yourself. That's why they say, there's a family, and there's why you have teammates. And in the Bible, it says he sends them out 2 by 2. And the last one I'll tell you is that, that's why they said the good shepherd goes after the one and leaves the 99, because you're not built to do it by yourself. You're built to do it with people that love you, that care for you, that have a same mission for you. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't pick our head up and say, where are they? Who are they? Because they're there. You just have to ask.
Outstanding. I appreciate your time today. I always appreciate our conversations.
Me too, brother.
They're always enlightening, and I love your presence, just being around you, and I just hope that people listen to this episode and feel what I feel when we speak.
I thank you for the opportunity, and Tony, you've been a breath of fresh air in my life, and I'm looking forward to doing life together.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
You bet, brother.
Well, guys, that's a wrap on this powerful conversation today with Bill. If there's one thing that I hope you're walking away with, it's this. Leadership isn't about titles. It's about transformation. Bill's story, it reminds us that no matter where we come from, we each have the power to rise, lead, and to live a life that's grounded in purpose and driven by service. So here's your challenge this week. Don't just listen, guys. Apply it. Take the wisdom that you heard today and use it. Put it into action. Whether it's creating daily disciplines, seeking mentorship, coaching, getting your health in check, or just stepping up as a leader in your own life, you've got what it takes. And if you're ready to take your growth even further, I want to invite you. Stop in and visit my website, tonyc.coach. And while you're there, stop into the Tribe Shop. Check out some of the cool podcast merch we've just put up there. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a leader, or just someone that's hungry to break through the noise and level up in every area of your life, I've got the tools, the coaching, and the resources waiting for you. Remember, guys, you're the CEO of your life, so lead it well. Until next time, I'm your host, Tony Camerata, and remember this: stay fast, stay fluid, stay flexible. Be the absolute best that you can be, because your best is yet to come.